process of processing literature and the need to conduct any output. Because if I'll tell you that you need to bring me a definition of computer self-efficacy, and you know you have a paper, but you have no clue where you placed it on your shelf or in the floor, or you have no clue where it is in your hard drive, then it's not fun to go and hunt that paper or start from the beginning. Okay? So the idea is to create to yourself some kind of a management, literature management we call it, that you can follow, whatever works well for you. Okay? And different people use different systems as long as you use some kind of a system. Because if you don't use a system, then you're going to have issues. So what we showed here is a very simple worksheet that you can, as you go through the literature, you can document where you find certain keyword searches that you have achieved, so you know you can cross them. I already covered these keywords on these databases up until this date, right? Same thing for the authors. I've looked at these set of 15 giants or major authors in a certain area of research, and I've looked into these databases and already covered whatever they've published in journals that exist in these databases. And so you create some kind of a system. The other philosophy that I have, and again, those of you who took my class are aware of this, I want to recap it as well, is a technique that I used over the years to organize my literature. Okay? And the technique is essentially mimicking a digital with a physical structure. And what I created is I created folders in my hard drive under my literature folder where I place papers in there as PDFs when I download them. And so I created either constructs that are major constructs in information systems. You will see areas like ethics, or areas like IS success, or knowledge management, or methodology, or security, serve quality, quality of service, technology acceptance model, value. These are crucial major area of research of my interest that might fit into, over the years that I accumulate literature, I store it there. And so the way I store it, and again, this is my system, you can create whatever system you wish that works well for you, is I create the folders. In the folders, I name the files that I download, the literature papers, as the last names and the year of the publication, which is obviously how we cite or how we refer to an article. So that's the way I store it in a digital way. I do the same during my dissertation. I no longer do this in physical because I back it up. I'll tell you in a moment. But during my dissertation years, what I did is I created binders, 3-inch binders, that you can see the picture here, that actually included in each and every one exactly the same printed versions of the papers that are inside my hard drive. Same structure, the same thing, and I would capture just every time I add a new paper, I'll just capture the screen with the list of papers that I have in that folder, and I'll just put it at the beginning of the binder so I know which papers are in that binder. Okay? And while you read the literature, and this is crucial, as you go through the reading, I'll talk about it later on, not only the management, but also the physical aspect. If you make comments either on the PDF or either on the in handwriting, if you prefer to print and do in handwriting, I'll show you some examples. It is important for you to store it, especially those of you who do a lot of handwriting on your articles. Print them and do handwriting comments on the margins. Make sure you create some kind of a system, so when I tell you you need to go and look for a measure of IS success, you know more or less where to find a paper that will address that. Or if you want to find a paper that will back up an argument for why there is a problem in a certain, why you need to use a certain methodology, you go to that methodology folder and you find there a paper that you remember you read 3 months ago or 6 months ago. Okay? So the literature management piece, as you go through the process of the inputting of literature, is important. Now what? So we got this, at this point, we reached a point where we have tons of literature, hopefully accumulated over time, and now what do you do with that, right? And this is a typical case where a lot of students tend to ignore the stacks of literature that they accomplished or collected over years, and they stick to just one article, or they stick to 2 articles and that's it, instead of going and actually using that. I'm not saying that using one as a starting point is not a good approach. It's an excellent approach. But as you build up your arguments for the problem, as you build up the argument for the need to the study as part of your goals, as you build up the argument for a certain methodology, you need to use different references. You can't use a single reference for the whole dissertation. It won't work. Okay? And so you need obviously to get the perspectives, and this is where it will help you. So this is where we come to the processing. Okay? So we've collected enough information, and I want to run through it quickly because our time is running. I want to leave some time to questions and answers, and also for some hands-on, if we have time, get you into some of the databases. So the idea is to go through a processing. The idea is to really know the literature enough to obviously comprehend the literature and apply the literature, analyze, synthesize, and evaluate. And I'll go through these very quickly now. And essentially, the idea is to not just have a single piece of literature or multiple pieces of literature that you just read. First of all, after you identify the quality, that was in the previous step, right? And you ensure that it's in the right quality, you got to understand that there is a severe differences between pointing to literature and saying what is accomplished there, or how is it helping you in the process of argument to argue, to build as a building block for your argument. So I'm giving you here a very quick example, okay, where the upper one is obviously just pointing to a literature, right? Some research was conducted on a strength of passwords, whatever, and then it does not address what we talked before is based on what. It answers, says who, right? But it doesn't refer to based on what. You will see that the lower version, and again, this is by no means an excellent example. It's one example to illustrate it, is creating some kind of evidence to back up the claim. It's based on this number of users. It's based on this number of companies. It was done in this environment. It was done under these constraints, etc. This is what is important. When you know the literature, you don't just point to it. Okay? It's understanding the fitting of it. And obviously comprehend the literature, the ability to summarize, differentiate between research papers, interpreting the results, and constructing the results. This is where some students having difficulties understanding the methodology or the statistical analysis of certain studies, and they don't go to question enough. And so the simple way to go, obviously, beyond learning the research methodologies and going through the experience of learning it, what is appropriate and what is not, is to try to look for other studies that were conducted that are similar. Again, pure studies. We're not talking here about anecdotes. We're not talking here about meta-analysis of literature. We're talking about pure research studies. You need to, if you look at other types of research studies and look at contradicting results, you need to understand what the methodology means. And sometimes you need to educate yourself. And don't stop there. I mean, you have plenty of resources on the web to go and educate yourself if you need to comprehend better the literature. That's the point. Okay? So if you don't fully understand what is ANOVA, or what is a t-test, or what is structural equation modeling, by all means, go to YouTube. Watch a 2-minute video on it. Try to learn on your own. You're grown-ups, you're doctoral students. Spend the time to educate yourself and use all the resources you have to get the right understanding, so when you evaluate, at least you have the basic understanding of what you're evaluating, and so you better comprehend that literature. And obviously, as part of comprehending is also meaning that knowing and understanding the theories that are being discussed, the constructs, these theoretical constructs that we're developing, issues like satisfaction, issues like quality of service, issues like different constructs, computer self-efficacy. These are just simple examples I can throw in as constructs, and then how they form theories, how they are related, how different theories are related as well, right? And as you go through the literature and you read that, and this is Dr. Alice gave me this example to share with you, is we have margins to papers. They're not just used to staple the paper, the pieces of papers. We use them to write on the margins, okay? And that's a crucial piece. Either you do this digitally on your PDFs, or you do this by hand on the paper itself. Use mechanisms while you go through in reading to indicate to yourself where is this paper can help you as you go through the process. Does it help you argue? Is it supporting your problem? Does it have a very good methodology that you can implement later on? Maybe it has nothing to do with your area of research, but it has a wonderful methodology that you might want to pursue or adopt or follow. In that paper, for sure, if it's a good quality, they also argue for why that methodology is worthy, why it's valid, and the process of indicating. They actually provide you arguments for, if we're talking about structural equation modeling, for example, in the information systems, they will tell you all the goodness of fit indexes. And they will show you what is valid and what is not valid. If you're talking about factor analysis types, I'm just giving examples for methodology, but you can see the same thing applied in others. So as you go through reading and trying to comprehend the literature, make sure that you also make notes to yourself beyond that on where that paper can fit you, your research, your arguments, okay, as you go through. So later on, when you need or highlight, try not to highlight with colors. This has some examples, but he still wrote in the side, which is exactly what I say. I make the distinction between an undergraduate student and a doctoral student. Undergraduate student comes to the books and papers like a painter, right? They paint the book, and you open the book or you open an article, and it's like 90% painted with a hot marker, right? And then what is the most important thing? I have no clue. Everything is the most important thing, right? And as a doctoral student, you come with a pencil or a pen, preferably a pencil so you can erase what you wrote if you wrote mistakes, right? Or you wrote something that you then thought about it and you want to tweak it. You write in the margins or you write in the PDF to yourself. That text is crucial for you. If you find a definition, and my rule of thumb for everyone, as you go through the process of arguing for a problem, we discussed this morning in my group, is that as you go through the process, you need to ensure that you define certain things. What does policy mean? How do you define it, right? Someone will define policy in one way, another person will define it in another way. How do you define knowledge management? One person will define it one way, another person will define it, and maybe you're going to find contradicting definitions, which might help you spark ideas for a research. That's another point. But the bottom line is, when you find these definitions, use those definitions. Don't try to invent your own definition. Use the literature. according to X, Y, and Z, computer self-efficacy